Well, cool, guys. All right. Well, again, because this is like a totally open format thing and not a like a pre-scripted thing, Jeff, Pat, John would love to hear like what challenges, what issues you guys are dealing with, what you're hoping to gain out of today's discussion. Um, you guys are driving, right? This is like an open format, and there's no dumb questions, and like go for it. Like anything that you guys are struggling with right now, would love to hear. And Jason, welcome. And yeah, everyone, I'll keep reminding as people come in, cameras on, ideally, right? This is a chat. Hey, Jason. Oh, he was there.
Think he's still connecting.
Okay.
I'll say one issue we run into, and I don't have specifics, unfortunately, and I'm, like I said, not able to be on camera right now, so I can't really talk too broadly, but we do a lot of ruckus. 99% of the time, we have zero issues. We do have one house a year, one house every few years where the client says, my Wi-Fi is terrible. My speeds suck. I can't get on Zoom. It buffers, blah, 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 blah. We run a Zoom meeting for an hour, no problems. In other words, we can't replicate the issues. And we think we're putting in all the settings correctly because, like I said, they work on every other house we do. So having some resources to help troubleshoot and diagnose and maybe some best practices along that route would be helpful. And again, I don't have any specifics to give you at this time, but just kind of basic general troubleshooting guidelines, diagnostic guidelines, things like that.
No, that's a
What kind
great.
of controller are you running? Oh, sorry, Nathan.
We have a few that are in the cloud, and in fact, this one client I'm thinking of is in the cloud. The rest we've been doing unleashed. Um, Frankly, because I've just been tired of subscriptions and Ruckus. Long story, but Ruckus had me on one version of the cloud license. Then they said, "Oh, well, no, you need to be on this other version," and that threw a big monkey wrench into things with pricing and all sorts of stuff. So I got kind of fed up and said, "I'm just doing Unleashed from now on," because we have really very few issues with Unleashed, if any.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me dive into a couple of those. I mean, one of the things that is really difficult about networking is if everything just works, then it's, hey, whatever product I chose must have been the right product. It's the perfect product for all those things. It's when things go sideways when the strength of the product, the strength of the team supporting it, and the configurations related to it come into play most poignantly. For example, the site with the cloud. If you were on the higher tier licenses, which it's doing, full AI, full machine learning, documentation of everything, it's tracking MAC addresses for the last year, which is, as a IT professional and we're wanting to troubleshoot things, the most effective way to troubleshoot remotely or even get to the core problem is being able to analyze the actual data when the event was occurring. So with the cloud controller, it can track per MAC address, up to a year of data. So you could say, hey, this client's device, this MAC address was having this issue on this day. And you can dive in and really determine what was the issue that was, affecting either the quality of the connection, speed, whatever those things were. And that's one of the really big benefits of having, that cloud controller is that historical data that can then be parsed through. And if you know what you're looking for, really identify, what these issues are.
Just to add something there as well. So do you know if it was just the one computer that was having issues? Because obviously we also have to wonder if it worked fine for you, then maybe it was his computer. But I'm assuming the next thing is he's going to say, well, it works everywhere else. It works in the hotel, it works in my office, but it doesn't work in my home. Is that accurate?
Yeah, pretty accurate. He has said like my kids complain all the time that they can't even load a web page, stuff like that. So
Oh,
it doesn't seem to be related to one single device or one
okay.
single area in the house. Like we will sit literally where he says he was sitting or his kids were sitting, and our computers have zero issues. And like I said, we'll run a Zoom meeting for an hour with no problems. Um,
Have you
so we
done the
just haven't been able
quality?
to replicate anything.
Have you
Yeah,
done
so
the
that
quality of experience test?
What's that?
Have you done the quality of experience test? There's a test that's part of the cloud controller that you can do where you can do a quality of experience test on his device or whatever device you want. And it will,
Ye-
as you move through the environment, it'll record all of the data, jitter latency, anything like that. And it can be used to help potentially identify where the issue is coming from.
Yeah,
And it
last
actually
time we were there, we
specifically
did.
uses Zoom. Okay.
Yeah,
Now,
they did both. I think the one that's built into Zoom and then the one that's built into Ruckus. And we even had a couple of the Ruckus. I don't know their position there. Supposedly they were engineers, but they didn't seem like they knew too much about troubleshooting. And they looked at settings and said everything was fine. They were recommended by like my regional rep, for lack of a better term. They looked at settings, they looked at logs, they looked at everything they could, and they said, yeah, everything looks perfect. So
yeah,
again, we're left with everything's done correctly, but we've got a client complaining. So
yeah.
I don't know where to go from here.
Yeah, sadly, Ruckus Tac is not the best if you get just like the guys that you just call into. When you said it was like mainly Zoom, I was gonna say, cloud does have the ability for you to map similar to when you have Wi-Fi calling and you enable those Wi-Fi calling settings, and it basically says, okay, anything that's connecting out to these EPDGs, the like Verizon or T-Mobile or whatever, it's going to tag that traffic with DSCP markings to basically give it quality of service to say, hey, this is important traffic. It needs to flow better than everything else. And then, of course, you have to also put those markings on your switch and on your firewall so that it goes all the way through. You can do the same thing. It's not as easy to do as with the Wi-Fi calling because all those profiles are kind of built in. But in the services part of cloud, there's an access control portion. And you can actually map specific traffic for video calls, whether it's Teams, Zoom, or whatever, and prioritize that traffic the same way that you're doing with Wi-Fi calls. Now, you're also mentioning that they're having trouble, like the kids are just having trouble getting to web pages. I mean, that's concerning. And I wonder if maybe it's something upstream, not necessarily related to the Wi-Fi. If you're running Wi-Fi tests and everything's working fine, maybe the DNS servers that they're attaching to are slow. Or I know in the past, people will just pass the default DNS servers from Comcast, let's say, to the inside of their network, and Comcast DNS servers are notoriously bad. So I would recommend going to, Google's or 1.1.1.1 or something like that. But it's weird. It seems like it's a lot of issues, not just video. It's also browsing, and that's a tough one. Because if you're not seeing it while you're there, that's one of those things that's always the hardest to troubleshoot, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And I was thinking router because we use MikroTik routers a lot and have had great success with them, zero failures. And theirs is a couple model years old, but still it should be plenty fast for everything that's going on there. But I haven't heard from him recently, like in the last several weeks. So I think everything has stabilized. But my next step is just to throw a more powerful router in at my cost and have it go for there from there. The switches and all that, they're and again older Cisco, SG500s or something that are there. So everything should be fast enough for what's going on there. So unless it's
I'd
an
be,
issue.
yeah, I'd be worried about those switches, right? Because they
Yeah.
run really high CPU utilization.
Hmm.
So if you look into one of those small business switches and you look at the CPU utilization, it's like show CPU util or something is the command.
Hmm.
They'll like just regularly they'll run at like 40%, which is crazy. I mean, a Ruckus switch, an ICX switch will be if it's more than 5%, there's something wrong. But
Hmm.
those switches, you'll see them just regularly, just with nothing on it, it's like 40%. And if it starts pushing to 90%, if you start seeing it spike, you can see 1 minute, 5 minute, and so on. If you see it spike to something that high, then that means at some point it might spike to 100%, and then you're going to start having issues. And that could potentially be the reason why. I would dive into, the CPU usage on the router, CPU usage on the switches. Just try to look at everything you can because you're going to be stuck if it doesn't happen while you're there. That's really shitty. I mean, the
Yeah.
best thing to do is look at that old analytics. Like if they say, hey, it happened at this time, ask them for timestamps. And the only thing you can really do for historical record, unless you have extensive logging on the switches or the router, is look at the client device by MAC address on the troubleshooting section of the Ruckus Cloud and see if there was anything happening at that time.
Hmm. Yeah, great points. And as you can probably tell from the model numbers, some of the equipment in the house is a number of years old. And then we did a revamp of his media system recently, but that didn't coincide with when the problem started. So yeah, still just trying to figure out what's going on there.
Yeah. If anything's happened within the past 3 weeks, there was a major bug in cloud. that we've been working with their developers on. And we have a patch now to kind of fix that across the board. We're probably going to be pushing it next week to every site, but we didn't want to push it until we were sure that the patch was reliable and stable. This is one of those things that pops up. This is the first time it's been such a major issue since we started using cloud. And we were on the original cloud when it was on Kumo, then Alto, and then now the new one. This is the first major issue that we've had. It was for little things, but when we start getting phone calls all over the country, even though it's a little problem, it's a big problem for us. And my general thing is, we only sell products that don't create phone calls, because we're a support company, so we don't want to, have phone calls. If there's phone calls, then we have to change products. That's what happened with Sonic Wall. We had to ditch Sonic Wall for that very reason.
And I can tell you, I mean, we've got over 13,000 APs on the cloud, and what you're experiencing isn't common for our sites. Otherwise, we would not support it. We've, like you said, the last issues in the last 3 weeks, which were, very particular problems. But, from across the board, it's been not only, rock solid, but it gives us, when you have the potential issues, on a site, being able to diagnose it and dive in becomes, critical. And some of the things you're facing, I was an integrator for 20 years. And so I worked with, way back in the day in the 90s before we even had, networking and Wi-Fi all the way through up all the generations and issues. And what I realized as I got more and more advanced into this is sometimes finding a way to get your customer to understand why you're selling all the products, it's a Ruckus switch, Ruckus AP, and a equivalent level, FortiGate's an enterprise level, the industry leader. But having these products in there allow you to ensure that they've got all the settings to, when you do have certain traffic that's having issues, not only can you, funnel it to exactly where it needs to go, but if there is a concern, you've got the data and metrics to be able to isolate exactly why it happened, what it did, be able to dive in and do your packet captures and really identify it. So one thing that, like I said earlier, if it just works, hey, this is great, it was the best solution. It's when you run into problems that you start realizing by elevating and to different products and unifying across, you can literally ensure that if a problem does arise, you can just eliminate it.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with all of that. My issue comes when, like, let's say a client puts me on the spot and they're like, well, why are we using, I don't even know the prices, a $3,000 switch as opposed to a $1,000 switch? Yes, I agree everything you just said, but me backing it up with personal experience, it's hard to justify with one house out of hundreds having problems or two houses out of hundreds having problems. And yes, if I had it at this house, it'd be a lot easier to solve the problems and the customer would be a lot happier, but it's hard to convince a customer of that up front. So
it's funny as it is, and I remember doing this back in the day, and it's always interesting to me because you can sell them a $3,000 speaker that performs marginally better than a $1,000 speaker. You can sell them a $5,000 TV that's marginally better than a $1,000 TV, but they just have a belief. And I think part of the thing in our industry is getting people to understand that, their technology experience in their home is 100% dependent on the network that they're using. And you're not going to go buy the cheapest tires you possibly can and put them on your sports car because they might work in city driving, but that one time you need it, they could fail. And so it's ensuring that the products you put in for the network, not only do they work in the basics times when it's not being, really burdened by the number of devices or the quality, what's happening, but what happens when you're throwing a party? What happens when all the kids are over there? What happens when you get new devices and that operate differently? It's really selecting the products that ensure you can, maintain an elevated technology experience from the beginning all the way through the life cycle until it's time to, upgrade that site.
Yeah, that makes sense.
A good point, Nathan. It's like, been using the expression for the network for years. It's the foundation of the home or the digital backbone of the home. And it's almost like using an analogy. It's like, well, how strong do you want your foundation of your house to be? If there was an option to save a little money on rebar or something, would you do that? Or would you want the strongest foundation possible? You can probably go, well, of course, the rest of the house is, could crack and get cracks in the walls and stuff. Well, this is where you want to spend your money, right? And because everything, like what Nathan said, everything else is dependent on that. And I remember the early days of like Nathan, you were saying, I've been doing this since the 90s, right? Like the early days when networks weren't even a thing, and integrators didn't touch them, and then Crestron started going to Wi-Fi touch controls, and then you're like, what the hell? And that was a nightmare. And like, and then realizing how many brands got crapped on, control brands, because like there was a bad network in there. It wasn't really a bad product. The control system wasn't bad, but the integrators didn't know networks. So it's like, this is kind of where we started from. But another suggestion, John, I don't know if you're using this or not, but and I thank Nathan and Bjorn for their help with this. We did another revamp on the budget calculator last year, and the one trickiest math part of our whole budget calculator is the networks. So use that as a sticker shock provider, so you're not the bad guy. And I don't know if you're using that or not, but the prices in there all got revamped last May or so, May of 2024, where we only used to have like kind of consumer grade, and then pro and enterprise grade were kind of together, and then we split those out. And that right there could kind of help justify the cost, right? Just as a suggestion, right? Like, well, why do networks cost so much? Because it's the foundation, and this is an interesting thing, like where the gap between consumer grade and pro grade and enterprise is like pretty damn big, right? It's a big price jump, but massive capability difference too.
Yeah, I'll check out the newest version of it. I haven't looked at it in a little while. I do have it in my email signature and website and everything for people to use. So hopefully my clients are using it more than I am, but I do need to use it more.
Yeah, and the way that we've been instructing, and you've been with us for a while, John, too. So like,
Yep.
our advice on using that calculator has kind of evolved with time as we hear back from integrators that are having great discovery processes. And one of in the old days we used to say, yeah, give it to your client as a homework assignment. And some do still, and their clients do fill it out, but often it's a great discovery phase discussion. You're like, hey, let's spend 5-10 minutes going through this budget calculator. It just gives you an idea of cost performance, and it's only a few questions, and it'll help me understand the scope of what you're looking for, but also kind of help you understand what things cost. And then you go through it, and you're learning a lot just by asking those questions, but you're sitting there live with them. And then the sticker shock happens, but you've deflected it upon an association. You're not the bad guy. The association's the bad guy. So let that win for you. But then there's that, we put networks really close to the top, right? And that's not by accident. It was because that's so important, to the rest of everything else. Everything beneath it relies on that network. So yeah, just like a sales tip on there too. So
Well, and I think that relates, you and I had this conversation, is in the projects you find where you don't have issues, everything is great. And when there are, so to say, a problem arises from the product or whatever, it's resolved, and the client, over the duration of owning that product, loves it. You find that network's usually 10 to 12% of the overall budget, because, just like your pre-wire, that's going to scale based on the needs of the project. So is the network. And, I think it's important when you're having the initial conversations, starting off with, yeah, if you really want to know network price now, it's gonna scale with the project, and it's, 10, 12% of the overall budget. I can't tell you exactly what it's going to be yet, because we haven't defined, one, all your needs related to the project, and then two, what the devices we ultimately end up putting in for you are going to need for a network to support them. Homes have significantly greater network demands than almost any business. And therefore, the network that goes in many times is more robust than people anticipate, because they're accustomed to, oh, we put this in my business, but your business only has a few device types. What do you got? Some printers, laptops, computers. Things are all designed to work on the network together, maybe some smartphones. You know what it is in homes. We've got, how many different IoT devices or multicast devices and automated discovery and all these other things that are going on with devices that were never meant to work together. So, you can see how rapidly the network becomes the pivotal point in their experience.
As soon as you said it with devices that aren't meant to work together, all I could think of was Sonos.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Uh, well, and I think one of the other things, and this is, kind of I'll stand on my soapbox pitch a little bit, but, I didn't realize this enough when I was an integrator, but there's three aspects to a network you kind of have to consider when you're going through, and part of it's the product, part of it's the configuration, and the other side of it's support. And there really is consumer level, professional level, and quote unquote enterprise grade level on all three of those categories. And it is that, most of the time in this industry, our teams and what we can afford to hire on staff and different things, we've gone from consumer level up to, staff that can do a professional level configuration. And if they've had decent training, professional level troubleshooting and things. But it's rare for most integration companies to be able to have, a CCNA on staff or a CCIE or multiple people like this that really look at things from the network, from the binary aspect out. As AV integrators, we look from the client experience in. And they're two different views to the same problem. It's one of the reasons, Bjorn started the company, 16 years ago and was very successful, is being able to, he has that unique ability of being able to understand from the binary perspective out, but also when somebody's having an issue from an AV perspective looking in, be able to translate that and understand where they connect and go, which is, why we've grown the company. And most people look at it as, oh yeah, I don't want to buy from you because I don't need your support. I can do it on my own. But it's beyond that. There is the support in the times that you need it, but then, we deal with, hundreds to thousands of projects a year and, listen to the changes in the industry. We work with manufacturers, so we've evolved best practices over the time. And we find that the companies that, use us the most, they love the fact that the standardized configuration comes in. If your team doesn't have to worry about all the nuances of when I put this one command in, it affects these 30 other commands, things like that. So being able to, start from that point and then we're available 24/7, 365 with zero hold time. So it's just like if your tech was in the field and said, hey, I got an issue, and you were calling into John and your team. Same thing with calling into our team. So, I bring this up just because I think when you're facing those issues, having somebody who can, from a networking mindset, look at things from the binary world out can sometimes help in those situations where you've thrown up your hands. You've looked at everything you can from the AV world in, and another set of eyes sometimes can really identify that issue.
And that comes into selling service level agreements too, right? That's just a great reason to do that. And I think I don't know, I'd love to hear some topics on that too. And like maybe Bjorn and Nathan, what you're seeing is that in time, as this industry is evolving, are you seeing integrators have an easier time selling the benefits of that service? Because, God, you're always hearing about breaches and hacks and there was something again too. I just saw a headline. I think it was 2 days ago. I didn't click any of the article, but it said like there's like a huge botnet that's attacking IoT devices or something. I should have read the article, but that was a headline that was like an Apple News or something, right? So this is stuff clients are seeing, and it's real, and you could be there to help mitigate those things. So how is that evolving in your world? Is that getting easier to sell? Have you seen more dealers selling them?
I mean, security is becoming easier and easier to sell, right? The question is what kind of security are you choosing and how is it evolving right now? We're kind of seeing the appliance-based security kind of going away, and we're working on a few different things to move along with that. Just because, I mean, one of the best things you can do is make your site invisible to hackers, right? And to do that, you have to make sure that all ports are disabled on your appliance. So that includes VPN, right? So you can't VPN directly to the appliance. Obviously, port forwarding is another one that you should never do. So there's a lot of things, using a SASE or something like that to tunnel all of your traffic through to that, and clean it that way rather than doing it through the appliance itself. There's also other things that you can do with that functionality that is more difficult to do on a local firewall itself, which would be to enable the ability to do encrypted inspection. But that's always, I've been railing against that for years in our industry because especially now, 90% of internet traffic, if not more, is SSL encrypted. Even YouTube's encrypted. They're encrypting cat videos just because it helps the SEO. And nobody's able to inspect that because unlike in a business where you have group policy, where you can actually push certificates out to each device that joins the network and also dictate which browsers they're allowed to use, you don't have that ability in a home. You're not going to get that control over some billionaire's iPhone. And so, we have to try to create an easy way for them to get that kind of service. Right now, most firewalls, they're basically saying they're looking at the source of the traffic and the destination and saying, okay, well this site is on a list, and so we're not going to allow traffic to that site or something like that. But when it comes to botnets, like you were talking about, one of the best things you can do doesn't even require security service licenses. It's just segmenting your traffic correctly. Put those IoT devices on another VLAN other than the homeowner's VLAN. Make sure the homeowner's VLAN only has access to a few things. No SSH outgoing. There should be no reason to have SSH outgoing on the homeowner's VLAN unless they have a very specific need, like they're an IT guy and they're pushing updates somewhere, connecting something with SSH. So that's going to keep a botnet from being able to talk out to a command and control center, right? But the segmentation is important because anything on the IoT VLAN should not be able to access the homeowner VLAN. Anything on the Crestron VLAN should not be able to access the homeowner VLAN. Anything on any other VLAN should not be able to access the homeowner VLAN. And you'll say, well, okay, what if the homeowner wants to control their Crestron system, right? How are they going to talk to it? Well, if it's a stateful firewall, when the homeowner initiates the connection to that other VLAN, now that device is allowed to talk back over that connection. And it's only allowed to do that when it's initiated from the homeowner VLAN. And so just simple things like that can really protect against those types of threats that you're talking about right now.
All super great points, right? Great selling points on the need for these networks, the better networks, right?
Yeah, and I think
Yeah,
one
I
of
mean
the
it's
things
it's
that,
getting crazy out there. It really is.
yeah, and to kind of answer part of the first question, I think what you find is when we first, came onto the industry was still struggling with a lot of their network knowledge. And we've had more players come in and more professional level products come out that are, pumping a lot of knowledge in. And integrators work on a variety of level of projects. And I found working with a lot of dealers that are like, yeah, we used you for our big projects and we just kept using for the big projects. And then they start having, difficulties on the other and they start realizing, wait, I've got packages that are down to, $5,000 retail, different things. And when they start realizing that they can leverage the team on a greater portion of projects, the answers to the questions like what you're talking about become much more easy to discuss. So network is not something you think about in a second, hindsight anymore. It's something that's leading the conversation. And so we find these guys going, okay, so if we just did a basic network, what is this? Okay, if we want to add on security services, what benefit are they getting out of this? Okay, what if my client's really security conscious? Well, now we need to have a whole best practices conversation and different things. And just like integrators have a flavor for their control system and their, lighting and everything, people are evolving into having we are the people that protect, that put networks in or on this level, this tier, and different things. And homeowners are able to align themselves with the integrators that are better suited for the projects that are, or the networks, or even just the whole systems that are more what they're looking for. The client needs analysis has become much more important.
I can't stress enough how much it has to be a partnership between like our company and our partners. And that is because, everything that I just said, it doesn't just happen, right? Because I can't just dictate. I mean, I guess we could just dictate to you like this is the network and this is what you're going to put on and you're going to put your devices over here and this is going to be the subnet. That's not how we work, right? I know that some companies do work that way because it makes it easy because everything's cookie cutter, but we are custom. And so it ha there has to be some information from the other side, from the partner side, like, hey, this is what we can do. Are you guys good with putting this on another VLAN? What subnet do you want that to be? Because we can't just have somebody fill out our design form and they just want a flat network and then just think that these things are going to magically happen, right? There has to be education on the other side to say, okay, well, to do what you want to do, we're going to have to create the network, design the network in this way. And then their technicians have to also go on site and plug things in the right ports to ensure that it is segmented. Because there's only so far we can take it without that partnership and that team in place. If that makes sense.
Well, I think a lot of it's the questions that are being asked of the homeowners too. I mean, the client needs analysis has evolved, like I was saying, and something simple. This is even beyond all the things we're talking about with cybersecurity and the strength of the network and different things. But if you're walking into a customer today, do you want to design for Wi-Fi 5 or sorry, Wi-Fi 6 or Wi-Fi 7? Okay. Wi-Fi 7's here. But if the homeowner has their ISP is less than 1 gig and they're not getting a bunch of interference from neighbors, what benefit would they give out about having Wi-Fi or the 6 gig spectrum on Wi-Fi 7? It's just overkill for them. So for that particular customer, you can actually request a design that's Wi-Fi 7, but it's only 2.4 and 5 gig. Because if they're not going to get a benefit from multi-gig, does it make sense to spend the money? Well, part of the client needs analysis. How long, what's their refresh rate? How often do they anticipate changing their network out? Every 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? Anything you want to last for a longer duration, now you need to front load that technology. So somebody's going to switch something out every, 2 to 3 years. They could go with, lower end APs that are just 2.4 and 5 gig. They don't need 6 gig yet. They don't have the devices. They don't have that. And knowing 3 years down the road when their technology has caught up with it, sure, they're going to upgrade the network then to have those features, those things. But if they want to front load that so that the network works now and 6, 7, 8 years down the road, they need to invest heavier in the beginning to make sure that it can still support technologies that are yet to emerge.
Those are really good points, right? So put maybe it's not the latest greatest tech, but super rock solid, reliable. So the budget's going to that, right? Not the latest shiny object that might not be needed for their particular use case. But
Yeah, everybody's different. I mean, do you want to buy a car that's going to last you 10 years, or are you buying a car because you're leasing it and every 2 years you're going to swap it out? What is it that is driving them on this purchase price? People don't expect TVs to last 20 years anymore. They know they're going to last 5 and they hope they get 7, 8, right? So the question is, why aren't we having the same conversation when it comes to the entire backbone for their technology experience? Where do they want to invest?
That's because it's so painful. Because you spent 30, 35, $50,000 on a network, and then within a few years you get a new phone and you want to be able to have the new technology, and they say, I want to have this. It's like, well, now you got to change your APs and you got to change your switches, you got to change your router. They're like, I just did that 5 years ago. It was 35 grand. It's a painful reality.
Yeah.
I think though, this is my impression though, with technology changing so fast everywhere, right? Like phones and VR and headsets and cars, electric cars, and everything's like screen now. Clients are getting used to like new tech on a pretty quick refresh cycle that I think clients are, not that they like the price, but I think they're getting more accustomed to like technology's moving at a breakneck speed. It's not slowing down, it's speeding up, the rate of change.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely gotten easier to sell networks, right? Because when it first started, people didn't understand why they needed a good network. And I think enough people had bad experiences where then they started to understand, okay, well, I don't really want to cheapen out on the network anymore. And that's actually, when you were talking about earlier, how when Crestron started coming out with the Wi-Fi touch panels and things, that's how I started the company was Crestron was recommending those WRT 54Gs, the Linksys blue boxes
Yeah, yeah.
on their website. And the company I was working for at the time, I had just moved there from an IT company I moved in as the IT director of this Platinum Crestron dealer. and they were getting involved in a couple lawsuits with some huge homes that they did, Crestron, and there was all this finger pointing. There's finger pointing towards the Cape, right? The Crestron authorized independent programmer, and they were getting blamed. It's all your fault. It's the program. Everything else is fine. And I looked at it and I'm like, I think this is a network issue. And so I talked to my boss. I said, look, can I just, rip this stuff out, treat it like an enterprise? We're going to put in Cisco AP, Cisco switches, Cisco router. And he said, at this point, we got nothing to lose, do it. And I managed the traffic properly, put the right gear in, everything started to work. And we did that at both sites. And everyone was really happy. And the Cape was especially happy because he kept swearing it wasn't his program, and it wasn't. And so, the Cape started talking and we started getting more stuff. And I realized, hey, I can do this for more than just this one company. I can do it for a lot of other companies. And so the people really driving why reboot were the Capes across the country. They really got us started.
Interesting origin story there. That's really cool. Yeah. I had a conversation yesterday with an integrator that was pretty eye-opening and made me think of back to an experience I had years ago too. And this was, we were talking about salespeople, and in this particular company, they had a Rockstar salesperson that was, pretty much attached to billionaires only, and his niche was cybersecurity for billionaires. So he made that his specialty, and I guess he came from that. It's not like he's an integrator that thought of this one day, but he's very successful as an integrator because he comes from this high-end cybersecurity background where these billionaires that are CEOs of companies have targets on their back. They're paranoid, probably for good reason, that people are trying to steal trade secrets, and they can even camp out around the house to even try to infiltrate networks. And this salesperson, that's their specialty. But once they get that billionaire, these billionaires have homes all around the world. And now this salesperson is like in a jet all the time, traveling around doing all these giant estates. So he's made him a rock star integrator in sales because of his cybersecurity background. So I'm like, whoa, interesting. That conversation literally was yesterday. And that goes back. I remember I was a consultant for a while, at a company called Axiom Design, and I met someone that was a cybersecurity specialist because it was regarding a billionaire client of theirs. And it was fascinating talking to him and realizing that like they won't allow Sonos products in that billionaire's house because of the leaks and the things that aren't locked down on the cybersecurity. And I don't know the technical reasons why, but it was just saying like, the point of this is, if you make this a service, like the cybersecurity aspect of it, who knows how that might take you into new clients that you don't have yet, or they see your value more. So do you have to know all this stuff yourself? Do I think no, but the smart people here on the call, that got your back and can design those systems. But really interesting to see that just the cybersecurity made this salesperson doing, I don't know, I think they're over $10 million a year, in integration sales. Unbelievable. So some blue sky there to look into.
Yeah, I mean, cybersecurity, you can take it really, really far, right? The problem is if you really want to lock down a network properly, you have to look at every single device on that network. Ideally, you would have zero traffic allowed outbound except for exactly what's needed and exactly to where it's going. So for instance, Kaleidoscape, right? You have to know what ports need to be open for that Kaleidoscape, where it's going. Same thing for Microsoft Teams, same thing for pretty much any service. And a lot of these things, like Microsoft, you've got a ton of different sites that it needs to access. One of the biggest attack vectors, like if I was going to try to hack a home, aside from going after the people themselves, which are the weakest point, cameras. So how many people update the firmware on their individual cameras often, right? I mean, you'll have cameras sitting there and nobody's updated the firmware on them. And those are little Linux boxes that, there's some new attack vector, there's some new CVE on that on that IP camera. And if somebody can manage to get into that camera, now they have a command and control center in the camera itself. They can move laterally within the network. Um, and there's a lot of other devices just like that. A bunch of IoT devices, things from China. Someone's kid just bought online and they plug it into their network. I mean, it really it can turn into a nightmare for everyone involved if you really, really, really want to make sure to lock the network down.
Well, I think that's the key to it too, is it's one thing to be able to sell the fear or, we want have this router or these services that are designed to, provide this service blocking things for us. But as devices are adding and joining the network, this is where I'm going to, raise that flag of partnering with somebody like us or, hiring, spend $1 million a year on your IT team, because you're literally going to want to you're going to be on beck and call initially in the beginning as you're opening and closing ports and really keeping things locked down. But the ongoing support of that to ensure that not only is it operating at peak efficiency, all the firmware is updated, all the reporting's done, making sure as devices are coming, there's changes made. The more security conscious people get, the more the ongoing support becomes a heavier lift.
But something, if you're willing to do, you can do, right? That's a service you could provide. So,
or you just buy from us and we include so much stuff for free. It's not even funny.
yeah.
Yeah, but they still have to do a shit ton of work on their own as well.
Yeah.
We're not,
Yeah.
I
It's
mean,
a partnership.
we're just updating our gear. We're not updating your cameras.
Yeah.
So we've done a lot of talking. Jeff, Jason, John. I know Jeff G just joined us, or we got two Jeff Gs here. I don't know
Yeah,
about that.
that's so I'm the I'm the real Jeff G. That's Jay Parker. Jay, I said use your own name. He
Sure.
logged in with my link, I think. So Josh, thanks for organizing this. Now, obviously, I can tell from Nathan's hat he works for Ruckus. Bjorn, I missed the int.
I work for Y Reboot. That's
Okay,
here we
so
go.
Bjorn, are you Y Reboot as well, or?
I am, yeah.
Okay, so I've never met you guys, so nice to meet you. Jay and I are in Toronto. We work for a small company called Cloud9 AV. We do, anywhere from a $25,000 foundation level project all the way to $1 million homes that are $1 million systems in, multi-million-dollar homes in Toronto. I like to say that we have a very good experience in networks, but listening to you guys, I think we don't know shit. So we do have clients that are very scared in terms of cybersecurity. Their IT departments are the ones that kind of drive the discussions. And to be honest, like our team is full out, like is swamped in terms of ability. Like the three guys that I would trust in our organization to kind of be front and center on the networking discussion with clients and their IT folks are limited in terms of availability. It's great to think that we can sell ongoing service and support, but when somebody buys even a $100,000 platform to do their entertainment, security, and comfort systems, they expect a level that's included in that, not necessarily to get a bill for $5,000 a month. And what is really required to have a partial director of IT. So my ask for you guys is to, let us know how we can leverage the experts in our industry to top up our skill sets. And I'll back up a little bit with what do we sell when we go to market. So Jay is one of our sales guys, and his expertise, a lighting designer by trade. So he works with a lot of designers on Lutron products and solutions. So he's not really, he just wants the network to be done and working and doesn't have to worry about it. You have conversations about it, Jay. I'm speaking for you a little bit, but when we go to market, we have 4 sets of solutions, right? From foundation, and we use the words foundation, luxury, and estate like HTA does. So it actually really works well for us. But we basically, for retrofit DIY environments where we're really not providing anything much more than a few TVs and Sonos and maybe some basic alarm.com cameras, we're doing Euros, right? It's retrofit. There's no cabling in the house. It is what it is. And hey, we tell them, you buy it, we buy it. Don't matter if we buy, we add on a tax and it goes through our billing and that's it. And we charge you for expertise to set it up and that's it. Our next level up is TP-Link. We use Omada. It's been fairly good just because they have such a wide breadth of devices and installation capabilities. Like my favorite is a little like Ubiquity and Unify make a little wall one that has a port, a switch built in. It's great for a home office. It's great for not having stuff on the, and again, retrofit. If a house was built 10, 15 years ago, it's probably got Cat 5e on the walls, right? So we can put access points on the walls and not, I had a client call, what the hell are all these frisbees on my ceiling doing? Right? So I use frisbees now. You guys can use it too. House full of frisbees.
I like that.
So we
I've
don't
never
do
heard that. I like
Unify.
that.
Right. We don't do Unify, but a lot of our competitors do in Toronto. So we come across it. So a couple of our guys know how to rip out and or reconfigure Unify and deal with it. Our next one is Arachnus, and we're heavily invested. We have over 600. I think we're almost up to 700 sites on Oversea. So we're heavily invested in the ecosystem. And then our top of the line is Ruckus, but I know nothing about Ruckus. Dave, one of our network engineers, is a huge Ruckus fan, but again, the price is, like I think Bjorn, you mentioned 35 grand for a network. Yeah, so we've done a few Ruckus networks, and they're up there. They're significantly more expensive than anybody else's. What Jay and I don't know is what do we get with that, beyond the expensive access points, and maybe we're not doing the network right. So it'd be great to have some dialogue on how to build these, ultimate networks, because some of our clients want the ultimate network. And I don't know it. Dave on our team does, but again, doesn't have necessarily the time or the patience to talk to Jay and I about how to build those out as dummies, right? We're the ones talking to the clients and have to translate what Dave says or what you guys say into what does he care about? What does he or she care about, right? In terms of spending 30 grand on a network. So anyway, that's our situation here in Toronto. Other than the Blue Jays being down to Seattle 2-0, life's okay.
Hey, I'm in Tennessee, and they just fired their football coach. So there you go.
There you go. Yeah.
One thing just to note, Ruckus has wall mount APs, and Ruckus can do mesh in situations where you have no wiring. So technically, it can work in those same situations. Not that Eero's great for a certain level installation. I'm a big advocate in scaling the network to the appropriate project. And I think are there things that Ruckus does differently that are patented and different things? Absolutely, especially in their access points.
So one of my frustrations with Oversea and Arachnus is the level of reporting. I don't have a good log to go back and see why on Friday night, network performance was bad, or a device logged into the network and it caused something, right? So I'm not going to spend my time troubleshooting. I expect our guys that are in service doing that, but providing proactive maintenance and support for clients to say, hey, we did these updates. What are the logs administratively to say, like, hey, these are the people who accessed your network and pushed out logs or pushed out updates. Oversea, I can't believe Oversea doesn't do that.
Well,
Like that's one of the things I've been asking, just from a compliance standpoint, to say who has Oversea, enabled access and who can actually push those updates.
Well, what you just identified is one of the biggest differences between professional level and enterprise grade.
Mhm.
Professional level gives you the remote interaction, gives you the ability to monitor things in their current state and those things, but it's also why it's free. And or even in something like Domots, which is very inexpensive. It's
Mhm.
when you're getting up to the higher level gear, like like we said with the Ruckus Cloud, I've got a year of tracking per MAC address per AP, because this is an enterprise grade level solution, which part of it is compliance, part of it is collecting that data and those logs so that you do have all that historical data to sift through. Um, so
And
yeah,
audit trails to show who logged in and did what when and where.
And that's what I'm getting to, right? Because I think that from a cybersecurity standpoint, that's what clients care about, that those measures are in place. So maybe if you can point us to some articles or videos that illustrate those things from a sales perspective, then we can help our clients get educated. That what you describe as that freeware, that's just more about ease of maintenance versus the pro and enterprise grade compliance and audit trail. Just who's got the capability of accessing their network. I want to know as an integrator that one of my techs didn't leave a back door open, right?
Yeah. I mean, probably one of the best ways to illustrate it to them is to show them whatever compliances are followed, right? Like if they're certified with certain compliances, whether, SOC 2 or HIPAA,
I don't understand
Sarbanes-Oxley.
any of these things.
Oh, okay. So for instance, HIPAA is the medical records one, right?
Okay,
You have Sarbanes-Oxley, which is the financial one.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, so you have all these
Yeah.
different compliances, and so if you choose your products that way, you can show the homeowner, hey, this. You could also say this is trusted by the military, by Department of Defense. If they're really concerned about security, versus no one's putting an oversee into the Pentagon. You know.
Right. So is there a subset of information that we can maybe consolidate on, and after this meeting, Josh, that can help us synthesize through this, other than asking ChatGPT to do it for us?
Yeah, well,
Careful, be really careful with ChatGPT because uh, like even on Wi-Fi 7, the last, I've been putting out a series of stuff on Wi-Fi 7 and I do a lot of the education for CDN stuff on there. And I've asked ChatGPT a number of times when I'm looking to reword things, and ChatGPT is wrong at times. And so
Hmm.
be careful, especially on things like this. And I think one of the biggest variances is ChatGPT is great at looking at historical usage references. And we're talking about bringing in a technology that was, where was this technology originally used? The financial sector, the military, hospitals, anything that's so important to maintain security, compliance, and stability. Nobody thinks of homes as having that, except for those of
Hmm.
us who work in this industry. So be careful with some of the things you find on ChatGPT because they're probably not worded or geared correctly towards the environment we're working in.
Yeah, I find a fun thing to do with ChatGPT is when you know something from a factual standpoint, test to see if it knows it as well. So,
yeah.
as an example, what you're saying is true, and I'm very skeptical about what I do ask. It's got to be fairly simple things. Um, but an example was just comparison of Caseta versus Raw 3 versus Homeworks, right? Give me all the features and functionality, and I'd say 20% of it was wrong through ChatGPT. I mean, it was just scraping the web and giving me back information, so it wasn't, fairly accurate. But there's definitely some hallucinations going on there. So, but our clients are doing those searches, right? They're the ones who are coming to us with false information that we need to clarify and help them make the right decisions. And again, it's Ruckus isn't for everybody's budget, that's for sure, right? If you're building a modest home and you want to spend $25,000 Canadian, which is basically free in American dollars, you're not gonna be putting in a Ruckus unless it's a tiny home or a trailer,
I'm gonna
right?
I'm gonna I'm gonna contend with that on one point. The new R370 Wi-Fi 7 APs retail at $800 a piece, and you can have a switch as low as $1,200 retail. I mean,
Okay.
I've
Well,
done,
again, I think product knowledge for us is weak on the Ruckus side, so we'd love to know more and bombard us with information that we can then get our clients on board with. Because I know Dave. So Dave Napoleon is our kind of our head of our networking, and he takes care of service and support. And he's overloaded, but at the same time, he's deployed some amazing networks in our environment, and it's been great. So. Um, Again, the other thing is a lot of our techs, they don't know, right? They're installers, they're physical cabling guys that put these things in and connect the dots, and then our engineers and programmers make it all work at the end of the day.
but we find it's funny you say that is we find that our greatest partners are the ones that have either one or a team of really good IT people on staff. And
Mhm.
once they start working with us and seeing what our team can do, it allows them to be much more efficient. And we're not a threat. We're more of a complementary thing to, them. And yeah, frankly, our biggest partners are the ones that are the biggest IT team. So
And how does Y Reboot make money? How do you guys go to market? What's your play?
so we sell Ruckus and FortiGate firewalls, so Ruckus switches, Ruckus APs. But what it comes down to is we're a support company, and our support comes at the cost of buying some products with us. We sell
Hmm.
the Ruckus and Fortinet at standard dealer costs, and we include 1 full year of support, 1 year of advanced hardware replacement, next business day advanced hardware replacement, fully
On
configured,
indoor.
yeah, on indoor devices. Um, Basically, we take.
So the play there is if we're competing with somebody who or an environment where they just want the top-notch network expertise, we want to outsource that. That's the situation, or
Well, yeah, I
Well,
mean, like if you were buying your Ruckus product from somebody local, which I know I'm going to take Canada out of the picture, for instance, but just say, in the US, um, and they were sourcing it for something, but it didn't come with any support, and you're trying to get a hold of Ruckus, trying to do those things. Your team, our team, my support team is available 24/7, 365 the whole time. Whether, we do the initial configuration, which we prefer because we can, pull all the levers, dot all the T's, make sure everything's dialed in correctly, shipped with your flavor, your IP schemes, your VLANs, how you like it configured. It shows up as if your team already configured it. And then when your team deploys it, it could be your basic tech in the field. He calls in, and we got a team of engineers that literally walk through deployment checklists with him, make sure everything's dialed in, make sure everything's working properly. And there you go. When it comes to supporting it long term, you have full access to, an IT glue account, which has all the passwords, all the configs, everything on that job site. So your tech can be the one troubleshooting. We tell them if you've spent more than 5 or 10 minutes troubleshooting, just make a phone call. If you think it might be an IT phone, like I said, 24/7, zero hold time. And
and
then our
it's not tiered support, right? So you don't reach a level one guy. You're always reaching an expert who's familiar with every single part of the network and is certified. Our guys are network heroes. It's not going to be a frustrating call where you're getting some guy reading a script. Ruckus reaches out to us for support on our channel. We hold more specializations than any other company in the country with Ruckus. I just got off the phone with some of their developers about an hour and a half ago. I was talking to the head of IT last night after dinner. Nathan just got back that's where he got the hat. Just got back from their Accelerate conference in California. I'm headed next week which was the partner advisory as well.
Mhm.
I'm headed next week to Chicago for the second partner advisory. So we're like this with them. So when your guys call in and they have a Ruckus issue, we're going to be able to help out more than anybody else,
And then do
especially in
you
our
handle
channel.
other platforms as well, or is it pretty much built around
So
that?
we stick to what we know works and what we know we can support, and what we know has compliancy, right? And this way, we're sure not to spin our wheels. Like if somebody calls in with an issue with a Cisco switch or something like that, though most of our guys are CCNA certified or higher, um, we're not familiar with all the latest products. Every single product has some kind of firmware bug on some level somewhere. We don't want to spin our wheels, waste your time, waste our time, and we don't have an hourly billing charge, right? So we're just going to basically help, and we need to make that as effective as possible. And to do that, we need to have that relationship with the manufacturer to that degree. So that's why we don't really. I mean, if somebody calls in and they have an Arachnus switch or something, and they have our system, and there's a level one tech that needs to tag ports on that Arachnus switch because now it's gone to multi VLAN, we're actually going to help out. We'll actually screen share with them and set the tagging on that Arachnus switch that we didn't sell, just so we can help them work. If a level one tech's on site on a Sunday and he calls in for support from us, our first question isn't, what's the serial number? Let me check to see if it's under support. Because what's the answer? If it's not under support, we're going to tell him, sorry, we're not going to help you. And the homeowner's breathing down his neck. We're just going to help him because he can't cut a PO. He's not reaching out to his manager on a Sunday and say, hey, I need you to renew support at this site so I can get some help. I've been there. I sit on hold for an hour. Someone finally gets on and says, what's the serial number? They say, sorry, you're out of luck. And then I'm screwed. So what we do is we reach out later in the week to whoever's in charge of renewals. We say, hey, do you want to renew this site? We helped you out this Sunday. No, we don't want to renew right now. The client's not interested. Okay, no problem. We're not going to send you a bill. If it happens again, we reach out again. Hey, we helped you out twice now. Do you want to renew? No, we don't want to renew. Okay, no problem. Still no bill. After that, people get guilty and they end up renewing. No one's really
Mhm.
abused it. If somebody does abuse it, eventually we're going to keep doing the same thing until everybody abuses it. Then we're going to have to change the way we work.
Real important service things to know, right? And what you can do. It's all, you heard that saying, it's all in who you know, right? So now with guys like Bjorn and Nathan, you have, I mean, I've been learning from Nathan for years, and conversations and podcasts and articles, right? You have these pros at your hand to step up your game and just you could sell the services, which is great to know that that level of support is there. To answer your question too a bit, Jeff, there's an article I threw it in chat, and this is and coincidentally Nathan wrote this article years ago, and I just sent it. You probably forgot you wrote it, but
Hopefully did.
it's a consumer facing article that we asked you to write back in like 2017, I think, or 2018, just saying like, because this is a fight that you guys all have as integrators, right? Like why to help a client to understand why they need to buy better networks, and they think you're just trying to sell them the bill of goods, and he just wants to make money and more profit on this fancy brand that I can't get at the big box store. And we all know, of course, that's not the case. So why don't we, HTA, put an article on the site that you can use as a sales assist to say, look, here's what an association is telling you need to do if you want reliable network in your house. So I sent it to you. Jeff has like a help.
I see it. Yeah.
But also, Nathan, now that you probably go, oh my God, I forgot I wrote this. It might need to be updated. But I love some of the things that you brought up today, which are such killer sales tactics, like, hey, this is HIPAA compliant, or with that Sarbanes, whatever it was called, like
Sarbanes-Oxley.
Sarbanes.
I used to work for Arthur Andersen.
Okay, there you go. Right. So like these major compliance things, it's like this is the kind of gear we put in your house. It's like, or if it's good enough for the military, it's good enough for you, right? Like to our client, like, oh, okay, done. So, maybe there's some things like that need to be updated. I'm just putting it out there now. I think the article still probably stands up pretty darn awesome, but if it could be augmented in a way, using newer analogies or something, please let's get it updated. But that's why that article's there. Is that
Yeah, let me look through it. I forgot all about this article. Let me let me dive through it and probably put Bjorn's eyes on it because he's got that knack of catching things that I miss.
yeah,
Especially smelling. But guys, I have to hop to another meeting. Bjorn is
yeah, we're out of time. Yeah, but we can stay on if you have more questions. Like I don't have to run anywhere now.
I'll stay on because I know what the other meeting's about. So I'll stay on if you guys want to.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Nathan.
Thanks for all the input.
Feel free to reach out. He's got my email address as Nathan at YReboot. If you have any questions, want to know more or anything, you can also find me on LinkedIn, different things. So look forward.
Both our emails are in the chat.
Yes.
By the way.
All right, guys. Have a great day.
See you, Nathan.
Give them my apologies. Oh, he got.
Pat, anything? And I see we have Moses joined in. Any questions that you guys didn't get addressed?
No questions per se. I jumped in when you guys were talking about access point placement. But since Ben Jordan's on here and he's developed some cool in-wall hidden technology, when are we going to see a fan module? Meaning, most of the homes we do here, fans are in the middle of the room. And it'd be awesome where that light used to go, there's a fan above me, to be able to pop an AP right in there and disappear. I want 5%. That's all I'm asking. So I actually talked to the guys at Aspire and Whack, and we're like, yeah, because they make fans now, right? Or Aspire does, and they're like, that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah, I mean, but you still see the AP on the ceiling. It would just be a mounting bracket that connects it to where the fan used to.
Well, Whack was showing, or Aspire was showing a big, not big, but the base where the bulb used to go, or you could take the bulb out. Granted, we got to worry about shielding in 110 and all that stuff, but they were thinking about creating a housing that would fit that you could put like a smaller size in, like a 300 series or something to that effect. But again, in my neck of the woods, I don't know about you guys, but fans are in the center of the room.
Yeah. I mean, that's how it is in Miami too.
Yeah.
Although everyone's ripping them all out just because they AC for the most part, which would go to what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, right now we're my my wife won't let me make any new products yet for a little while.
Yeah.
Although I have wanted to make a new cover for our Paramount because when I invented it, I made the cover curved to try to make it blend in so you wouldn't see harsh lines. But I forgot about this crazy phenomenon known as shadows, you know, and I should have just had the freaking line there. It would have been a lot less obtrusive. I mean, it's a great product. It's funny. It hasn't done so well in our channel, but it's done really well in other channels. I mean, companies like Chanel puts it in every single store they have all over the world, which is crazy. A lot of really odd places purchase them in bulk. Retirement homes. I'm not sure. It's strange, but then some integrators love them. They use them all the time. It's just so easy to take down an AP and put another one up. It's less than a minute, no tools. Magnetic cover. You take it down. You pull the lever that releases the cables. Take the AP down. Put another one in. Ratchet it back up in place. Stick the cover back on, and you're done.
Yeah.
Just need to improve the cover.
Yeah, hiding that tech is clever, right? Hiding that.
But if we do the fan thing, you get 5%.
That's it. That's all. Perpetuity, 5%. That's all I'm asking.
In perpetuity.
Oh, cool. Well, good questions, Jeff. Got a nice conversation kicked off there, and if John's still with us, I think he stepped off now. But really good points, and yeah, now you know the experts. Direct line to them for this, and onwards and upwards. Thank you for your expertise, man. This is such a technical topic. Holy moly, right? Holy crap. It's all but it's cool though at the same time, right? It's nerdy, cool stuff, and to the challenges, and hopefully we can maybe look at this article again, is to distill that down in a way that a consumer could wrap their head around and go, okay, yeah, I get this. I want the better stuff. I don't want to screw around with the stuff I get at Best Buy. So thank you so much. This is recorded too. The whole thing's been recorded, so we'll put this up on the YouTube channel. Anything that you missed or wanted to review again, others could benefit from this as well. So it doesn't end here.
Yeah. And if there's ever any questions you guys have, or your teams have a bunch of networking questions, we can always get on one-on-one with you guys and your teams and just ask us questions and we'll give you answers. You don't even have to purchase from us. Just if you have any general questions about networking or anything, we can set that up for you.
Yeah. One of the pushbacks we get from Arachnus users, we haven't done a whole lot of Ruckus, is the parental controls in Arachnus not being up to, let's say, the Ubiquity has something that they consider to be easy to use, kind of intuitive, whereas Arachnus is a little more clunky and not as comprehensive. Is that common?
Parental controls are really hard, right? Especially because there's only so much that you can do without actually putting a physical app on the client device, especially when it comes to being able to see all traffic. Because our test is, can little Johnny view porn, right? And we have our engineers like, hey, go view porn. So they're testing. I'll test for you, and the goal is, if we're testing a product, can little Johnny view porn? And unfortunately, most of the time, little Johnny can, with just a few little changes to their browser settings or something like that. I remember my kids, I put this app on their phone. My kids managed to get around it pretty quickly, which was frustrating. Parental controls are very difficult. Some companies make it look better, but is the functionality there? I don't know. I think it's going to be equal as far as getting to porn, unless you actually are decrypting the SSL encryption. That's really the only way, especially now with quick browsers and things like that. People are able to get around a lot of those controls.
Okay, that's actually helpful in directing the way from network providing that and have it installed, as you say, on the device.
Yeah, well, I mean, so the network can, if you have so basically to read encrypted traffic, you have to essentially do a man-in-the-middle attack. So the firewall or whatever device, or the SASE, has to be able to put a certificate on the client device so that now that security device can act as that device and basically strip open the envelope and read the letter.
Gotcha.
But yeah, if you can't do that, all it's doing is like checking DNS, checking what sites it's going to. It has to be on that list. So you it's limited.
Okay.
But there
I
are
guess, Jay, the answer is Ubiquity doesn't do it any better.
Yeah,
It just
that's
looks
what I'm
better,
taking away.
right? And it makes it easier. And there's a lot to be said for that because homeowners, you know, as long as they feel like it's doing something and it looks like it's easy to use,
They're better
it's gonna
parents,
make
right?
yeah,
That makes
right,
them feel
yeah,
better. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's a
So
product, right? Is it, you know, to do it the right way, it can be difficult, which is why it's been something I've been trying to make easier for many years. I think I'm really close, but with Apple, it's not going to be as easy as installing an app on the device. With Apple, we're limited to using an MDM, which I think a lot of people would not allow a third-party company to have control of their phones like that. And it's also another service that they're going to have to pay for that's over and above whatever the security license is. Or you can use, so Mac has some kind of, I forgot, it's Apple controller or something like that, where you can push certificates out from that. But then your technicians would all have to have Macs, and if you're not a Savant dealer, maybe they don't have Macs, and to be able to push that certificate out. So with Apple, it's a little shitty because you would have to manually put the certificate on the iOS device itself. But I think that is the easiest way to go about it. Technician goes, grabs the person's phone for a minute, they text them the certificate, they install it, they say, I trust this certificate, and then, everything else will kind of fall into play.
Okay. Thank you.
Wow. Dang, that's pretty trick.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
Lots of layers.
It
Yeah.
seems like you could outsmart the smart kids that way, right? That are trying to get around these workarounds. Like you do it that way. It sounds like you probably can do that, right? You could really lock devices down.
Yeah. Well, my kids are a great testing ground. They're smart kids. So if they can get around it, then I'm like mad, but then I'm also a little proud at the same time.
Perfect.
Yeah, that on both sides of the fence, being a parent, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
I pretend that I'm mad.
Yeah, I heard it's not porn, but related, somewhat related to this. I heard a podcast yesterday. It's kind of mind blowing. It was about I don't know if you've ever heard of that. It's called Star Talk. It's a podcast from Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he's an astrophysicist, and it's pretty interesting if you're like astronomy. But he has other scientists and all sorts of disciplines come in and talk about stuff. And the one that I heard the other day blew my mind. But they had a behavioral scientist, psychologist, like someone that knew what they were talking about, how brains develop in children, and about social media, and like kind of the proof it's screwing kids up and their development, like their brain at the very plasticky stages of development are getting kind of hardwired in a new way because they're not going out and playing with kids and taking these risks. They're all just on their phones and devices, and how like that's screwing them up as adults. And it was kind of mind blowing. I was like, holy crap, this is crazy. And he had all the stats to back it up. And it's an international thing. It's not just a US thing. But what he kept saying, the point of this was related to this, is like if you're a parent, you're gonna be the most unpopular parent to do this, but like especially if you have a daughter, no Instagram, none of these things until they're 16. Their brain's not done, and like you just put them into a whole mental, like they're depressed, suicidal thoughts go up, and all this stuff. And I'm like, kids are smart; they're gonna get around their parents. But if the parents are hearing this kind of stuff, I think any parent would go, "Oh my God, I had no idea." Like there's science to back this up. Okay, now here's the phones, fix it, lock it up, because they need someone like you to do that because they could barely understand tech, let alone locking things down.
Yeah, but here's the problem. You give them a phone, right? They have cellular access. You have no control over that.
Yeah, yeah.
So the best thing to do there is to whatever your provider is, whether it's AT&T, Verizon, they have parental controls that you can lock down from their websites, and they
Oh,
can do
okay.
that.
Log
Yeah,
log in as a on like okay, it's interesting
as
enough.
a parent and do that. Yeah. Yeah, because we can control the network side. I mean, unless it's an application, like Zscaler or something like that you can actually put the application on the phone, and it's managing no matter what network you go into, which is something we're working on. So stay tuned.
That would be another cool article if that comes out, to put that on the site as just like another service that's out there, because I think more parents, if information gets out there about this, and I think it is, it's starting to come to the top. You know, you've seen a lot of kids that, I mean, you've been there. You probably go to like a restaurant or you're in the mall and you see a bunch of kids hanging out at the table, and instead of talking, they're on their phones. You're like, hey, your friend's right there. You're like,
Yeah.
talk to them.
Well, they are talking to them like this.
Yeah.
The one right next to them. You know, it's crazy.
Weird.
You know, things like Snapchat. I've had to look into this a lot recently, and I think that if somebody wanted to invent the number one way to help bullies, they would have invented Snapchat. I mean, just right off the bat. You know, anything that you put there will be disappeared right away. You can see if somebody takes a screenshot or not. It just enables bullies. You can create an account completely anonymous. You can create an account pretending you're somebody else with their name and then talk to people. And it just goes on and on and on. The only thing cool about it is those weird little filters that, you know, you can make your face look like whatever.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it is terrifying that exists.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows? Probably, you know, maybe if there'll be some safeguards put in there in the future. Who knows? It's crazy.
Good
Weird
luck.
times. I'm glad I don't have little kids to deal with, and
Yeah.
that's scary, right? Scary things out there.
Yep.
Well, thanks, guys. This has been great.
Yeah. Thanks. Sorry I showed up late, guys. I had a client call, of course. Went late.
Pat, please say hi to Kale for me. He's
Yeah,
still
we'll
with you
do. He's
guys.
actually flying in as we speak.
He's a great guy. I like that guy.
Yeah.
Although he'd always call me Friday at like 5 o'clock because your time is, you know, it's Friday morning.
6 hours behind you. Yep.
He's always so happy. Mahalo, Bjorn. I'm like, dude.
Got a cocktail in hand here. What's up?
Right.
Yep.